Have you ever been hungry for shrimp tacos and refried beans, but you really don't want to go out for them? Well, I have a couple recipes here for you today that will make it easy to make them at home, and they'll be just as delicious, if not more so, than eating out. Hi, I'm Diana. Welcome to my kitchen. Today, I'm going to show you how to make shrimp tacos, homemade flour tortillas, and refried beans in the pressure cooker. So, let's get started. I am using pantry ingredients to make Chipotle shrimp tacos with a Chipotle Crema and sliced cabbage, homemade flour tortillas that you can make in about an hour. Most of that is resting time. And then refried beans that you can make from dried pinto beans in the pressure cooker and finish them up as you're finishing up the shrimp on the stove. You can also do some of this on the Blackstone if you'd rather cook out and not heat up your kitchen, but it really doesn't take much inside at all. So even if it is a hot day, this won't take much for you. Okay, to get started on our refried beans, we're first going to make the pinto beans in the pressure cooker. So I have one bag of, to make our refried beans, I'm starting with one bag, which is 1 pound of dried pinto beans in the pressure cooker with 6 cups of water. I'm going to take 1 teaspoon of salt. Actually, we're going to do 2 teaspoons because I really want it to have a lot of flavor. And 1 teaspoon of granulated garlic. You can use fresh garlic, you can use powdered garlic, whatever you want. I just want to give it some flavor while it cooks. Then we're going to put our lid on. Make sure your vent is closed. I'm going to turn this, actually, depending on what pressure cooker you have, you can go to custom, but I'm going to put it on beans and turn it to high pressure for 45 minutes. Then I'm going to press start and I'm going to let it go. Okay? It's going to take some time to come to pressure. And when it comes to pressure, it's going to start counting down the 45 minutes. Then when it's done with the 45 minutes, you don't touch it. You let it naturally release for about 15-20 minutes while you do other things. The last thing we're going to do is put the beans in a pan, smash them with a little bit of fat. You can use butter, olive oil, lard, whatever you prefer, and a couple of seasonings, and that will be our refried beans. So we're gonna let that go and we'll get started on the tortillas dough. So now we want to get our shrimp out of the freezer and put it in a strainer in another bowl in cold water. And that will defrost your shrimp by the time it's time to peel it and cook it. So for the tortillas, we're going to take 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Now you can weigh this, but you don't have to because you'll get a feel for it, and you may need to add a little more flour if it's a little wet. If it's a little dry, just add a little extra oil. So I'm going to take a 1/4 cup, 1/4 cup, 1 cup, and I'm going to keep this nearby in case I need to add a little extra. And we have 1 teaspoon baking powder, and It calls for a half teaspoon of table salt. I have kosher salt, so I'm going to do 1 teaspoon instead because it is a little coarse. A half teaspoon of table salt is ideal. You want to mix it well. Then it calls for 4 tablespoons of fat. So I am actually going to use 2 tablespoons of salted butter and 2 tablespoons of oil. The water, you need hot water about 7/8 to 1 cup. So here I have 2 tablespoons of softened butter. And I'm just going to coat the flour by squeezing the butter in. Starts to make like a soft dough, but it's still very powdery. Then I'm going to take 2 tablespoons of oil. And add that to my water. I'm going to pour that in and start to knead it a little bit with my hands. You want it to be a shaggy mess. Here you can see it's very loose. Okay, so it's kind of shaggy. You can see here it's still very wet. So we're going to put it on a floured counter. If it is too wet, and your flour hydration does depend on the weather. If it is too wet, just feel free to add a little more flour. And you just want to knead it on the floured counter until it starts to come together as a ball. Add a little more flour. So it really helps, if you can't see with their contacts in, to wear reading glasses, because I realized I only put 1.5 cups of flour in, and it should have been 2.5 cups. So the right amount of flour really does make a difference. So here we go, we have a ball now, and it's pretty well kneaded. So we have our beans are starting to count down, and this is fairly smooth. Okay, so it's come together as a ball, and I'm going to take my bench scraper and divide this into 8 pieces. Okay, now I'm going to make this into balls. I'm going to put a little bit of oil on them so they don't dry out. And then we're going to let these sit for 30 minutes. And we'll get started then on the rub for the shrimp. And we'll cut our cabbage, and we will make our Chipotle Crema. I'll be right back. Okay, so the beans have about 25 minutes to go before they naturally release for about 15 to 20 minutes. Now, that said, if you have a can of pinto beans, you're welcome to do it with the canned beans as well. Just rinse them well and put them on to heat them up in a skillet. Then smash them with a little bit of fat. I've used olive oil, butter, lard, whatever you prefer. And then add your seasonings. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to make a little rub for the shrimp. They should be almost ready to peel. So, I'm going to do, I think it's a little bit too big, a 1/4 teaspoon. I don't have a full pound of shrimp, I don't think. They're pretty big. So I'm going to do, let's do a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. A 1/4 teaspoon, actually, we'll do the onion powder next. A 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. A 1/4 teaspoon of cumin. Give it a nice warm flavor. And add a little bit of salt. Shrimp is naturally salty, so you don't need to add too much. And I like a lot of pepper. Now, you can put Chipotle seasoning in this as well. It depends on how your family likes heat. If you have kids that, or even a husband like I do, that does not like heat, use this as your rub and add the Chipotle in your crema. If everybody in your family likes heat, put a 1/4 teaspoon of Chipotle powder in here. You can also use a little splash of cayenne powder, or you can use chili powder. We just want to give the shrimp a little bit of flavor. All right. Then we have our dough balls here. We probably have about 15 minutes left to let those rest, and they are covered in oil. Going to slice some cabbage for the top. I prefer red cabbage, but you can use green cabbage if you'd like, or nothing at all. You can use a little bit of shredded lettuce if that's what you prefer. We like to keep it pretty simple. There's only 2 of us, so I'm not going to slice too much, but you want it nice and thin. And not too long. So I'm going to take these thin shreds and actually cut them in half. So this is what I have. And that's probably enough for the 2 of us. I can cut more if I need it. Now, one little reminder, this red cabbage will stain. It will stain your white apron, it will stain your white cutting board, it will stain your wood cutting board. Keep it on a plastic cutting board, or make sure you wipe your wooden cutting board right away. All right, we're gonna set this aside, and I'm going to get started peeling the shrimp. And I have it in a strainer on a paper towel. These have been deveined. If yours have not been deveined, make sure you do that just by taking a knife and pulling out that little dirt string. These are pre-cut, so they actually peel very easily. You can also get ones that are already peeled, but don't get ones that are already cooked because you won't be able to get the seasoning on those. So I keep my shrimp shells in the freezer in a baggie so that I can make shrimp bisque or just shrimp stock. Seafood stock if you need it for any kind of seafood soup or dish. And these peel pretty quick. You do not need to get the jumbo ones. These are pretty big. You can get the smaller ones. They'll cook faster. You want to make sure you don't overcook them. We're going to finish peeling these. Then we will dry them with a paper towel. Sprinkle the seasoning on them. And we'll set them aside until we're ready to saute them. That will be one of the last things we do. Once we have cooked them with the seasoning on, right before we remove them from the pan, we will put a squeeze of lime over them for a little extra flavor. Now, if you would put them in lime now to marinate, you can do that, but it does start to cook them, and if it's too long, it'll make them kind of mealy and not necessarily too pleasant. I like to do it at the end. So you eat ceviche, it is cooked by using lime, lemon, any kind of juice like that. So these are already peeled. Going to set this aside. Try and get as much moisture off as you can so they will brown better without overcooking. Okay, so we have our shrimp here, and we're going to take our seasoning. Like I said, this isn't quite a pound, I don't believe. Just gonna toss it in there. And give that some flavor. All right, we'll save that for a little later. And I'm going to clean up my space here, and I'll be right back to roll out the tortillas. Okay, we're gonna make a quick Chipotle sour crema. So I'm taking a lime that I did wash, and I'm rolling it on the counter to make it juicier. If it's cold, run it under warm water. I have also put them in the microwave before. So I'm going to cut my lime in half a while, and I'm going to take, I'm the only one who will eat this. My husband won't eat it, it's too spicy. So I'm going to take a heaping spoonful, maybe two, I really like this, of sour cream. I'm going to open a can of Chipotles. Our beans are finished cooking. Now we give it 15 more minutes. By the way, when you do beans in a pressure cooker, you can do the pinto beans for 40 minutes if you want them harder. But the nice thing is if you do them for 45 minutes, they're a little softer to mash, and it works out better that way. All depends on your preferred texture. So here I have, we'll do 2 Chipotles in adobo sauce. And I'm just gonna take a knife and kind of cut it up a little bit. You want them fairly small. going to put all this in the sour cream. Wash my hands. I'm going to mix this together. Add a little salt and pepper. You just do this to taste. Okay, you can see if you want it spicier, add more chipotle or more adobo. Okay, now add a little bit of lime juice to this to make it more of a crema. Put my lime in here. Squeeze it right in. You can see it looks like a lot of lime juice there, but it's not really too much because you want it pretty liquidy so it'll drizzle. You just really stir that together. Taste. You can see I could put a little more lime juice in it, or if you don't want to put more lime juice in, you can put a little bit of water in. It is a little thick because I have the chopped up chipotles. And there was a lot of onion in the chipotle sauce. You see if I can get a little without so much onion here. There we go. A little bit more saucy. There we go. So now it's just a little darker. I like spice. Okay. Since this is just for us. That is super yummy. Set that aside. I'm going to put the sour cream away. Get rid of my cutting board. And we'll roll out the tortillas. Now, when you do the tortillas, I use a comal. This is actually made to roll out or to cook tortillas. You do not use oil. You do it dry and you heat it medium high for several minutes until it's nice and hot. It might smoke up your kitchen a little bit when you first put it on, so just be aware of that. So I'm going to get this heating while I roll out my tortillas. I am using my power burner, so I have it on medium. Now you can also press these if you prefer. I'm going to roll them out to make it easy. I know everybody has a rolling pin or a wine bottle. You take your tortilla round, flatten it, and just start rolling into a circle. As thin as you can. Don't be alarmed if it's not a perfect circle. Some of us just don't have that ability. Then have the first one there. Our beans are counting down. They might bounce back a little bit, so here, we'll do it one more time since I picked it up. Our beans are counting down. They've been in here for 6 minutes of release. So smash, roll. So we have about 10 more minutes to let those till they come out. which that'll be done by the time we're finished with these. When we cook these, we cook them for about 30 seconds or so on either side, on both sides. Then you want to wrap the warm tortillas in a towel to keep them soft and pliable. This is probably the most tedious task of all of it, and it's not bad. I'm going to finish rolling these out and we'll be back. Okay, so our camal is starting to smoke. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. This is a pretty high-powered burner. I'm going to put my first one on, dry. I'm going to turn it back up now that something's on there. Get a pair of tongs. Alexa, set a timer for 30 seconds.
30-second timer started.
I'll get a plate and a towel. Alexa, repeat the timer. And we'll flip this.
All right, I've restarted your 30-second timer.
You can see the brown, which is exactly what we want. On our last tortilla. Now you can make these ahead of time, just keep them well wrapped and store them in the fridge if you're going to keep them for a long time, and then you can just reheat them, either wrap them in a moist paper towel in the microwave, or you can keep them for a while in a tortilla keeper if you're making them just before you make dinner. And just reheat them a little bit in the microwave or on the stovetop like this. So we have our tortillas here, keeping them wrapped. And you can see they're nice and pliable. They're nice and warm. Little bits of brown. We'll leave these wrapped up. Our beans have been resting here for about 20 minutes or so, 21 minutes. I'm going to do a release now, a quick release now. I'm going to keep a towel nearby because beans can have a tendency to be a little fizzy and they sputter sometimes, so I'll have that here. So I'm just going to press the button. There's not going to be much left in there. You want to wait until this comes down. That's down. It is now safe to release the lid. Okay. Now, I'm going to move my hot camal to the back, and we'll actually use that to make the shrimp then. And I have a pan here. And you can see here our beans. Nice and soft, squishy. Put them all in here. Do not get rid of the liquid yet, just in case you need to add a little liquid to it, depending on your preference. See, what is a bag of dried beans run? Maybe $3, $4 at the most. So here you're gonna have all these fresh, from scratch, refried beans for that amount of money, and a little bit of olive oil and some seasonings. All right. Put these on the stove top. I have my mix and chop from Pampered Chef. I love this thing. I'm going to use this to smash them so that there's varying textures. And I'm going to put some olive oil in for the fat. For the fat. And you can mix it as little or as much as you like. If you want it mashed more, you can use your spoon like this. But I think that's fine. And the rest of my shrimp seasoning in there. And then I'm going to put in a little more cumin. A little bit there for a little warmth. I'm almost out. I'm going to get a little bit of that liquid from the cooking liquid. And a little bit more onion powder. I like to put sour cream and cheese on my refried beans. How do you like your beans? Tell me down below in the comments. Okay, we'll put a little bit of olive oil in here. Let that get nice and warm. Here's a little tip. Keep a hot pad on your handle. If you have one of those silicone ones, that's really helpful. Make sure you don't get it on fire here, but keep it nearby so that you can grab the handle and it's a reminder that it is hot. I have my Kamal on medium heat, and you can see it's shimmering a little bit. It's starting to smoke a little bit. That's a little bit much olive oil, but this one isn't very well seasoned, so it tends to stick a little bit. All right. Shrimp need the minimum time to cook. You're going to see them turn opaque. and in most cases a little pink, depending on the type of shrimp you have. And you can see here, these are starting to turn a little pink. I'm going to flip them. Basically shrimp, by the time you put them all in your pan, they're going to need to be starting to be flipped. You do not want to overcook shrimp because they'll get rubbery. Here's one. I should probably use a bigger pan than this. Underestimated how many shrimp I have here. Here we go. All right. I'm going to start removing the first ones that I put on to a bowl. You can see there it's nice and cooked through. Remember, your proteins do keep cooking after you remove them from the heat. Let's turn our pan off. There's our shrimp. And again, lay the hot pad over your handle. Oh, who are we kidding? I'm taking 2. Wrap those back up. Put some of my crema. Like I said, I like a lot. Some of that in the bottom. Take a couple of our shrimp. A little bit of our cabbage. Now, if you like cheese on yours, you can go ahead and do that. I prefer it with just the crema and the cabbage. And I do have holders for these. Can I find them? No. Put some of our refried beans on there. Now you can also make a crema with just a little bit of lime juice for this. I'm just going to put a dollop of sour cream there. And I have a little cheese. And there we have our refried beans and Chipotle shrimp tacos. Let's take a bite. Mmm. Mmm. Those tortillas are better than anything store-bought. Just a hint of heat from the crema. Personally, I like more. Shrimp is cooked perfectly, has a lot of flavor. Let's try the refried beans. Now, if you like your refried beans creamier, add more fat or cooking liquid. I like them when they're not falling off my fork, which usually lands on my shirt. Perfect. I hope the next time you're hungry for Mexican food and you don't feel like going out, you have everything in your pantry to whip up a quick meal. And I hope you try the tortillas from scratch and the beans from the pressure cooker. But there's no harm in using a store-bought. So if you prefer to have that, that's fine. Thanks for joining me today. Please like and subscribe to my channel. I like to make all kinds of different recipes. Refried beans in my throat. I like to make all kinds of different recipes inside and out, baking and cooking. And